Well, it's another off day here on Locked On Capitals. The Washington Capitals have an extra day off before they take on San Jose on Saturday. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk to some people smarter than I. John Walton, he's a lot smarter than I because he's been doing this. He knows a thing or two here on Locked On Caps.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Capitals. I am your host, as always, the insider of the insiders, Tyler Kuehl. Yes, on this Friday, November the 19th, a day off for the Washington Capitals. No games to preview, no games to recap, which means, yes, that means I should be fairly bored. And nay, kids, no, we have some fun to do today. Mainly because, thanks to our good friend John Walton stopping by, he'll be here in just a minute. We got a couple other things we can kind of run through. We got to get to all that here on this episode of Locked On Capitals. And I must say thank you all very much for making Locked On Capitals your first listen and first watch today and every day. You can watch us on the YouTube channel, the Locked On Capitals YouTube channel, if you're listening. And if you're watching and you got to go somewhere, that's okay. Just kind of figure out where you are on the video and just go on your favorite podcatcher and you'll find us there, and you can listen to us on your drive or at work or when you're running or you're working out. I mean, I don't know why you'd ever want to use me to be your inspiration for working out, because I mean, what do you want me to do? All right, one more rep. Let's get there. Just get swole. Yeah. No, don't listen to me while you're working out, because that would be weird. Because I'm not the best at really inspiring people. I know some people really need to get their adrenaline pumping, and I'm about as inspiring and as big of an exciting machine as this wooden table, maybe. I don't know. I thought I should have probably come up with something better than that, but unfortunately, it's been a long day and a long morning, but it's okay, though. We're going to have John Walton make things a lot easier here in just a minute. But before that, I got to tell you guys about our good friends at Built Bar. Built Bar is a perfect time for Built Bars because Thanksgiving's right around the corner and it is a new holiday dessert. Feast on something delicious and feel good about it, because one slice of pie has upwards of 300 calories. That's on the low end. Most Built Bars are only 130 calories and only 4 grams of sugar with plenty of protein. They're low calorie, low carbs, low fat, high protein, covered in 100% real chocolate for the ones that have chocolate, of course. They have a great option if you're hungry, and if Thanksgiving isn't coming soon enough, because it's less than a week away, but you know what, that's still a whole 6 days, grab a Built Bar or two. There's nothing like a Built Bar Black Friday either, so next week, mark the calendar. Black Friday will be a huge event with all sorts of surprises. So go to Built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15. That is LOCKED15, LOCKED 15 on LOCKED15 for promo code for 50% off at Built.com. And as we mentioned off the top of the show, we are bringing back the radio play-by-play voice of the Washington Capitals. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show, Mr. John Walton. John, how are we doing today, sir?
A little tired, Tyler, but otherwise doing okay. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's something I was very interested in asking you about, John, because obviously you're still calling the games out west, the California trip right now. We're in the middle of the 4 games set out there. Well, West Coast trip now with Seattle jumping into the fray here. I got to ask you, how hard is it, or how much is your day kind of messed up having to call 10 o'clock games out east, even though the team is playing at 7 or 7:30 out in Cali?
It definitely throws you for a loop a little bit. And for Joe and Craig on the TV side and for Ken and I on the radio side, starting the broadcast at 10:15, and then, we do the podcast thing too. So we end up doing that after the game. And by the time that you're done, it's about 2:00 this morning. So it is different. It is a little bit of a trying time when you're trying to create what is a long way from home. I mean, it's about 2,400 miles to LA from where we called the game last night. So, technology is an incredible thing, and I never would have guessed before March of 2020 that there would have been a different way to do this kind of job. But it does work. I hope that it's, we get back to, making some more regular travel arrangements at some point. But to be able to bring it to the fans and to be able to do it in the way that we do it, I mean, it's amazing. I go back and listen to the highlights. I mean, it is honestly pretty tough to tell it's just hard for us to see everything. And, we know that, and seeing what's on the screen, you're limited by that as opposed to being able to see how plays develop and things like that. So it is hard, but, it's not impossible. And we do it the best we know how to.
Right, exactly. And of course, John, there's a good crowd out there that does the thing that I sometimes do with certain broadcasts. I have a few you yourself and a couple other guys that I like to listen to over the national broadcast or whatever, and they'll mute the TV and they'll line up the radio. So hey, if you're seeing what they're seeing, they'll believe you.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think that's, a lot of people do that. We do appreciate that. And, especially the national games, a lot of people like to hear the local folks. So, whenever that opportunity arises, I mean, we've gotten it down to the point where, we can take that over the air feed off television and, it's a little bit of the manipulation of the game audio underneath. But, if you're listening to us wherever you happen to be, you probably aren't going to notice too much of a difference. And, we do appreciate the folks, especially late night, that hang out with us, because that was a long way from home last night, and it has been all week.
Yeah, for full disclosure for the people listening and watching here on the Locked On Capitals YouTube channel right now, John did the Capitals this morning after the game. So you said what? You went to bed at what, like 3:00 this morning?
Yeah, I wasn't quite that bad, between 2 and 3. Yeah, I mean, it was, by the time that we get done, the post game runs about a half an hour, and that even in a late night game is, something that we stick pretty close to. And then Ben and I sit down with Caps this morning, and we do that after the game. So it's funny because, usually we do it and get it out in the morning, but, there's really no getting up early to get that thing out there. So we just hit send as soon as it's over, and it's only about 4 hours different from when we normally have it out. So it is a different time to be able to try and get that thing together and get it out before, we want to have people, especially when it's late night. I mean, a lot of people that don't stay up for it, you want to be able to hear right away what happened in the morning. So it's a real short night to get up and have it out between 6 and 7 a.m.
Yeah, I thought it was tough for me because I'm like, I'll do it right out. I'll do my half hour bit after this game or whatever and give the quick recap and whatnot. You're just calling a game right before that. So I'm pretty sure you probably have it a little bit tougher than I do, John. But let's talk about so far on this trip. You get an overtime loss in Anaheim on Tuesday. Then Wednesday, a victory over the LA Kings. Shutout for Ilya Samsonov, who we'll touch on here in just a moment. Are we back to that cycle where when you go out to California, it is back to sort of that Death Valley road trip where getting 4 out of 6 points is actually tough, where compared to when the last time the Caps were in California in 2019, December, 4 out of 6 points was almost expected the way those three teams were.
I remember when the group of death in California, and this is circa 2012, 2013, 2014, you're going to get your backside chewed pretty good out there. And the last time the Capitals were there in 2019, obviously not that. I'm not ready to say that it's the group of death is back, but there certainly has been some improvement. I was impressed with Troy Terry and Anaheim. I thought that, they've got some nice pieces there. I actually like Anaheim's team better than LA. And I don't know that, I get one sample size of, a game and then, get them in DC a little bit later on in the season. LA still got a ways to go in my mind. They're a team that has, I think, some very good D-zone structure. They're not going to give you much, but there's not a lot of offense there. I thought, Victor Arvidsson has made a habit of killing the Capitals over the years. And, when he comes back last night, I'm thinking, okay, here we go. But I didn't really think they had a lot offensively. I think that team ultimately is not a playoff team yet. I think they're going to be in the mix. I think they're going to be tough to play against. I think the Capitals, given who they were missing out of their lineup, I was really impressed with these first 2 games for the Caps. I think that Anaheim's team, they've got, the offense that is ahead of LA at this point, and where Jonathan Quick is kind of turning back the clock here for the moment, and hopefully for him. I mean, I'm a big Jonathan Quick fan, so I hope that is something he can continue throughout the season. I hope he gets to go to Beijing, and I hope he represents Team USA. But I think John Gibson is the future still, at least as far as, he's a here and now goalie, but he's younger, obviously, than Quick. So you got the goalie in Anaheim. I think you've got more offensive upside there. And I like their decor, too, in Anaheim. I think Anaheim's ahead of where the Kings are. I think both of them, within a year or two, could be looking at getting back into the postseason. And Anaheim might even make a run now. I think the kind of season that Troy Terry's having, I'm really impressed with what they've got in the top 6. But I think I'm more impressed with what the Capitals did. To be able to go out and 5 forwards down in both games and get 3 points out of 4, that's a real testament to this group to stick to it and play, whatever game presents itself. And I thought it was 2 different games that presented itself in Anaheim and LA, and they found a way to get 3 points out of 4.
Yeah, you mentioned the Ducks decor who had Cam Fowler, who got the first goal of that game against the Caps. And of course, they have Hampus Lindholm and a whole bunch of other guys. And right now, as we're doing this interview, they are first in the Pacific, which this time last year, we would all been chuckling ourselves, but that's how good they have been. But the big guy that we've really seen step up, obviously in particular last night, scoring the lone 2 goals in the game against Los Angeles, now scoring 5 in the past 4 games, Garnet Hathaway. The guy's on fire, John. What has all of a sudden sparked his offensive output?
Well, I mean, he goes to the net, and I think that's what, last night, he gets the goal that Carlson finds him at the top of the crease, get your stick on it, and be willing to pay the price. And I think that's what Garnet did. I thought it was nice to be able to get rewarded and get the empty netter on top of it. Amazingly, right now, he's got 5 goals. Last year, he had 6 in the whole season. So to be able to do what he's doing right now, this team, in the absence of others and just getting wiped out in terms of forward injuries, especially at center, but, and losing TJ Oshie, losing Mantha, never having Backstrom this year. And there doesn't really seem to be any solid timetable on when we might see him either, which is starting to be a concern as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
But I think when you've got other guys contributing, Garnet Hathaway's on that list. The kids coming up from Hershey have done a really nice job. I'm light years ahead of where I think they thought they would be by necessity, obviously. But I really like what we've seen out of a number of the kids who have come up. And, I think when you're getting those contributions, this is, a nice moment for the organization. It's not one they planned. You don't expect that kind of production from Hathaway. You don't, especially without Nick Dowd, a line that was together all last year. And here they are. He's running wild right now. The kids chipping in as well, and lo and behold, you're in a position where you're still pulling points, and you've still only lost 2 games in regulation all year, and you're tied for the most points in the NHL. That's really impressive when you have not been at all healthy since opening night.
That right there has been the crazy part. We obviously talked about it after the Anaheim game. Garrett Palan getting his first game of this season, second of his career, and scoring a goal after just going hard to the net, getting your stick not on the ice, kind of having to deflect it out of the air. But you mentioned that he's the 5th cap this year to score his first NHL goal. Feyervari, Lapierre, McMichael, Leeson were the other 4. Here's the big question. Is Alexei Protas having the Connor McMichael effect where he's getting a lot of chances right now and it's only just a matter of time before he finally gets one? Because he's had a couple of real good looks so far on this trip.
His ice time has gone up every game, and it's been deserved. It's also been needed because they've got to distribute minutes when you've got all these back-to-backs. I really like what Alexei Protas has done. I thought he had a goal last night. I think he's been knocking on the door for a while. The thing with Protas is he's such a big body, and you see, what they drafted and why they drafted him. And now you see with a lot of these guys, not just Protas, you're seeing that confidence of being in the NHL. Actually, Janssen Fialbi, same thing. He's got great wheels, and he's been knocking on the door and creating chances. These guys aren't just coming up and being placeholders. Like, they're trying to make things happen, and, they're contributing. They haven't necessarily broken through, but, Protas is close. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't want to be a team playing the Hershey Bears in about a month, because when all these guys go back, and they will, assuming that good health finally finds this team, they've grown exponentially as hockey players. They know they can play at the NHL level, and there's just not any room here for them. So when Mantha comes back, and when Oshie comes back, and that may be soon, when Nick Dowd comes back, hopefully Nick Backstrom gets closer soon, and these guys will have to go back. There's just no room here. But, to be able to get this out experience and opportunity and learn from it puts them ahead of the curve. So when they do get a full-time NHL opportunity, they'll be ready for it.
Yeah, last time I looked, I think it was on Monday, Hershey was around the 500 mark, but they've been playing pretty well in that East Division. And they're going to, like I said, when those guys come back, when they have that NHL experience, you really see them really start to take it to the American League kids. So that'll be an interesting for the Bears. Zach Fish, of course, will have a great time down there calling those guys coming back. But you mentioned guys, there's Brett Leeson, and one guy, unfortunately, who got called up and got sent back down, but had this one shining moment couple weeks ago, Zach Fucale. last week actually. Zach Fucale, first NHL start, which seemed like almost a decade in the making, finally gets his call in the NHL, mainly because Vanecek got hurt and they needed to have someone play. Pitches a shutout in his first NHL game. Now, John, you've been doing this for a long time. I'm not going to try to count the years. I want to make you still feel a little bit younger. But how many moments have you called that are that special for that kind of a player in a scenario like his family's there? Like I said, it's his first NHL game, and he plays well too. And for a guy that had to go through so much to get to that point, what moment was that like for you to be able to call that game?
It was a really neat moment. And, it started on our Caps This Morning podcast where Ben Raby actually got his dad on the phone while driving to Detroit. And that was great because we actually had that as part of our pregame. And then it actually held up after the game where, talking about all the emotions he thought that he would feel. And then lo and behold, Zach ends up getting a shutout. I mean, when you've got more than 8 years of riding around on buses in the ECHL and the AHL and finally getting that call up. And he'd been called up. I mean, that was a name that I knew going back to when he was in Montreal. He backed up a couple times, but he never played. And, I kind of had thought when he had gotten signed to Hershey originally, I thought he had played at least a couple of games. And I was like, oh, actually, he didn't.
Right.
And, everybody had talked in Hershey about how impressive he had been and putting up save percentages more than 93%. And the only reason he was here was they needed to get a goalie signed after Henrik Lundqvist went down. And, Vitek Vanecek, they thought was going to be in Hershey, and when he wasn't, they needed to go find somebody. So it was a really neat moment. And to see that happen, there just isn't any room. It's not a good idea. It's never a good idea to have 3 goalies for any length of time who are healthy. And, he needs to play. He needs to go down to Hershey. But I think they found out that if they do need him, they can call him up at a moment's notice. I didn't think he looked out of place at all. I thought the defensive effort in front of him was great. And, to be able to see the emotion of his mom and dad who were watching there in Detroit, it was a great moment. And, hockey will surprise you sometimes. You just, a random weeknight game at Little Caesars Arena ends up being a real memorable occasion. You don't really see that coming, even the morning of maybe. But it was really great to call, really great to watch, and really glad for his opportunity.
I still remember Jay Foster and I were talking about it. We were doing a preview for the Blue Jackets game the next night and said, you know what, maybe Fucale gets in against the Blue Jackets, gives Samsonov against the Red Wings. All of a sudden my phone bleeps. I'm like, hey, Fucale's playing against Detroit. And I'm like, oh, this will be interesting. And lo and behold, certainly one of the shiny moments so far this season, especially with all the rookies that have come up. Lapierre scoring in the very first game of the season. McMichael really coming on strong. Brett Leeson scoring 2 of the flukiest goals I think he's ever scored in his life. It's certainly been an exciting start in terms of the young kids with this team that we kept saying, oh, this is an old team. This is going to be a bunch of old guys with gray beards by the end of it. But like you said, more out of necessity than not. But these young kids that are coming in, these rookies and these younger players that may have not really expected to play a whole lot this season are having to play big minutes. And dare I say, and I mentioned this yesterday, even without without Mantha, without Backstrom, this team is winning hockey games.
Which is incredible, really. I mean, when you look at the California trip and then even going back to Detroit and Columbus back to back and then Pittsburgh at home, and usually that's a little bit more of an emotional rivalry game. Pittsburgh's in trouble. I think they've got a lot of things they got to address there. And,
yeah.
I'm not sure where that team's headed, but that's still for Washington. I mean, that's the game you circle on the calendar, and then you're immediately on the plane to the West Coast, and then you've got a back-to-back, and now you've got another back-to-back, and San Jose and Seattle on the weekend. So on paper, it looked daunting, and you say, okay, this is where in a 15-game month of November, this is where the wheels are going to start to come off a little bit. And look, they still might a little. You still got Carolina, Florida. You still have this daunting task, a couple of games with the Panthers before the month is over, one in each building. They're not going to be able to continue this pace over the course of the long haul. But the fact that they have done this for as long as they have in this month under some really trying circumstances, the kids growing up in front of us and getting all kinds of experience, I'm really impressed. And I think that, Ilya Samsonov may be as impressive as anything in the game in LA. He's had his struggles. His save percentage was below 90%, and he hadn't lost a game in regulation, but I wouldn't say that it had been flawless for him. And he'd kind of become the 1B to the Vanecek 1A around here. And, I thought it was a great statement for him to be able to get another shutout. The game against Arizona, he didn't get tested very much. He really got tested against LA, especially in bursts in the second and third period, end of the second, and several times in the third. He earned that last night. And that's, again, speaks well to where this team is right now. If, they've got to transition to youth at some point, and it's nice to know that, in the here and now that some of these kids are starting to contribute.
Yeah, and I talked about Samsonov yesterday after the game, and I said now it's, that gives that vote of confidence to Laviolette McClellan, saying, all right, you know what, if Vanacek does falter, say he has another a tough game against San Jose coming up on Saturday, obviously Samsonov maybe on tap for the Kraken already, maybe scheduled, but hey, next week you have that confidence now that Samsonov can play those big games. So obviously we'll have to see how that goes there. But the big question I have, John, I think a lot of us have it that are, following the Caps right now is, coaches always love to tell their teams, you got to go 110% for 60 minutes. Why can't the Capitals do it the extra 5 minutes right now?
It is a mystery that you can lose 5 overtime games. And, we were saying it a little bit after the Anaheim game. It's, I think earlier in the year, you would say, well, you're leaving points on the table. The fact that you got one in that Anaheim game, and maybe that one specifically you don't worry about as much. But, they haven't been able to hang on to the puck a whole lot in OT. I mean, I'm a little amazed that, for a team that has the offensive weapons they do, you figure they would have been able to break through and at least force a shootout at some point. They haven't even been able to do that. But it is a bit of an issue. I mean, the 3-on-3 isn't used in the playoffs, but they do seem to struggle with that. And I think that's, as the season goes on, the way this division is lined up, every point matters. And, the fact it's, it hasn't really hurt them to this point, which is the crazy part. I mean, if you could have converted a couple of those, you'd be, a couple of points clear of the number one team in the National Hockey League instead of being tied for the number one point total,
right?
Excuse me, in the NHL. So it hasn't hurt them, but, at some point it might. And, you'd like to see them break through at some point in OT. But, the way they've played in 60 minutes, this team's D-zone structure more often than not has been very good. Their shot suppression's been very good. They're built for 60 minutes. And, more often than not, they've been able to find a way to get 2 points.
Yeah, it just feels like they're going to win one eventually in OT, but I keep saying, I'm like, man, you don't want it to be the case where you go into the end of the regular season, you hit game 82, and the Caps were 1 or 2 points away from having home ice advantage or something like that. You really hope that's not the case, but obviously we'll have to, time will tell with that story. But I'm gonna leave you on this one, John. This is Stephen Ellis from the Hockey News and I have gone back and forth on this because we both love the international game. We both like watching, when obviously the Olympics, World Juniors, and whatnot. Do you think the NHL would ever tease the idea of going to the 3-point system? We've seen the Premier Hockey Federation, formerly the NWHL, do that this season, and college hockey obviously does that as well in the NCAA level. Do you think they'll ever do that? Because you don't have to worry about as many tie-breaking scenarios then, regulation, overtime wins, shootout wins, yada, yada. Do you think they'll ever do that? Or do you think they're going to stick with 2 points and you get a point even if you lose in overtime or a shootout?
Well, I would say never. This game of ours doesn't change a whole lot. So I would think, although it's possible, I don't know that I see it on the horizon, but I said that about the shootout in 2005 too. So the fact that they did away with ties, I mean, I'm showing my age a little bit. That getting a point on the road was something that it used to mean something maybe a little more because hey, if you went out to Anaheim and got a tie, for instance, the Capitals got a point, but Anaheim ended up getting 2. That was a pretty substantive change. For the game, going back 16, 17 years now. So. I wouldn't rule it out, but I think with where they've got it right now, I mean, I think they worry about record books and, and point totals, in a 3-point era. And then suddenly, you've got teams with 150, 160, 170 points or something like that. I don't know what the appetite is for that, but it does solve some problems. As you say, it does, maybe spread things out a little bit. It'd be interesting. I'd be open to at least examining that.
Yeah, that is always the thing I always hear. It's that it would affect the record books. I'm like, oh no, then you have to go to winning percentage. That's what would be the worst thing ever. And they still count wins. Someone will find a way to win 63 games eventually. You don't have to worry about points for that. Obviously, the Montreal Canadiens of the 70s are like, we like our point totals. You should keep it that way because, of course, Montreal is obviously very historically driven. The fact that they have won the most Stanley Cups among any single team. We've been chatting up today with the radio play-by-play voice of your Washington Capitals, John Walton. You can follow him on the Twitter at John Walton PXP and catch Caps This Morning every morning, even if he has to record it in the morning. John, thank you very much for taking the time once again, man, and enjoy the rest of the West Coast trip from the East Coast, and we'll can't wait to see you guys back in the arena next week.
Well, appreciate it, Tyler. Thanks for having me as always.
And a huge thank you once again to John Walton. As always, he'll be on the call from the East, from DC, to call the game tomorrow night and Sunday, of course, when the Sharks and Kraken are on tap. So let's kind of look at those two teams here while we have a moment in time. Actually, no, before we get to those, got to remind you guys about BetOnline. Back then, better than ever with a new web interface for the start of the NHL season. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code Locked On to receive the bonus. From basketball, football, baseball, boxing, UFC, favorite Vegas casino games, right to the National Hockey League. Do not wait to take advantage of all of the amazing offers for the 21-22 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. One quick thing as well, before we jump onto the San Jose Sharks page here. Troy Brouwer officially announcing his retirement earlier today. After 14 seasons in the National Hockey League, he is officially hanging up his skates. A guy that played most notably with the 2010 season, winning the Stanley Cup with the Chicago Blackhawks. Yes, I know there is that whole thing with that team in that season, but obviously he got to have his name on the Stanley Cup, so congratulations to him. Even though, yes, there is that whole story around that. We've already crossed that bridge. We don't need to step into it anymore. But congratulations to him on a successful career. Obviously, he had some of his best seasons individually with the Washington Capitals, where he's played from 2011 until 2015 before heading to St. Louis for a season. His career best year was when he put up 43 points in back-to-back seasons, including 25 goals in the 13-14 season for the Caps. Congratulations once again to him, where he picked up 92 penalty minutes that year as well. Talk about a guy that did it on both ends. A tough guy that has a knack for the net, but also was certainly never afraid to get a little physical, throw the mitts a couple times or two. So congratulations to him on a successful hockey and NHL career. So let's look at quick ahead here at the games coming up this weekend for the Washington Capitals. First, most importantly, the San Jose Sharks. They are certainly, it's a surprise. For me, it is a surprise because they're good, they're better, but the thing was like, this was my, like, I picked it to go Anaheim, LA, Anaheim. Help me out here, kids. Holy cow. Anaheim, LA, and San Jose. I don't know why I had a brain fart there. All of a sudden, I caught one of my posters on the wall, and for some reason, at this time of the day, it just mesmerized me. They have been a very tough team to play against, and right now they're not in the top 3 or the top 4 in the division. But here's the thing: they're still one of the better teams. They are at this moment. They're 8-6-1. They're playing right now as I'm recording this. Yes, I'm recording this on Thursday night. Relax. They're playing the St. Louis Blues right now, down 1 at the end of 20 minutes of play before they take on the Washington Capitals, hosting on Saturday night. But like I said, they're still a good hockey team. And here the crazy part is it's a mixture of the vets and the young kids really helping out. Now, yes, this is a big year for Tomas Hertl. It is a contract year for him. We came into this year saying Tomas Hertl is going to be a guy that's going to be moved at the deadline because he's still have good young talent and could really be a helpful player for a team looking to make a deep playoff run. Well, right now he's got 11 points through 15 games. But let's just talk about how the fact that Logan Couture is at a point-in-game pace right now. We thought he was an old goat that was done like dinner. Brent Burns was having a great start to the year as well. 1 goal and 11 assists for 12 points. If you guys want to know how many assists that is, the same amount as Johnny Carlson has right now. The team is looking good, but I think the real big surprise has got to be the goaltending. It's crazy. Like, once again, having watched the Leafs for a long time, James Reimer was one of my favorite goaltenders because he was a guy that really worked his way up through the system, like from the ECHL through the Marlies to the National Hockey League. Was with the Reading Royals at one point. Was able to work his way to the National Hockey League and have some success, and then they all threw it all away by getting Jonathan Bernier. That's neither here nor there. But right now, he started off the season. They've been splitting games, Aiden Hill and Reimer. Right now, Hill is 4-4. He's played, like the same amount of starts. 7 starts for Reimer, though. He's 4-2-1 with, you guys ready for this? A 1.71 goals against average and a 9.43 save percentage. Guys, that is all-star numbers right now. Somewhere, James, I don't know. I thought the Fountain of Youth was with Roberto Luongo in Florida. Somewhere in the San Diego Zoo or just out in the Bay Area somewhere, clearly there's something that's given Reimer this jolt because, boy, he is having fun being back in San Jose. Remember, he was the backup goaltender for the 2016 team, the Sharks that went to the Stanley Cup final. So he knows the organization. He's been a part of it. And right now he's like, hey, guys, remember the last time we were here, went to the final? I'm going to try to do that again, even though there's no business for this team to be doing it. And he's playing outstanding right now. I mean, yes, there are obviously signs that this team could easily fall backwards, but man, this is a good hockey and a fun team to watch as well. We thought the hot start they had was going to die off by like the third week of the season. Well, it's almost Thanksgiving, and while they have shown some signs of slowing down, they're certainly not showing any signs of really letting up and being a bad hockey team. I mean, yeah, I'm sure they'd love to have Shane Wright, but Reimer's not letting him right now the way he's playing. So certainly a good thing to see there in San Jose. Once again, that game, Saturday night, a 10:30 puck drop from the SAP Pavilion, almost at HP Pavilion, SAP Pavilion there in San Jose. The reason why I say HP because I'm old. Then you have the Seattle Kraken on Sunday, 9 o'clock puck drop Eastern time for that one. Yeah, the Kraken, it's been a little disappointing, right? But then again, it's also you have to remember and remind yourself that this is an expansion team. The Vegas Golden Knights just gave us this wildly dumb expectation of what an expansion team could be in the salary cap era where listen, all the numbers show that William Karlsson was not going to be a 40-goal guy. Who in the world thought that Johnny Marchessault was going to be putting up 50-plus points? Who thought Riley Smith, the way he was playing in Florida, was going to be something? Nobody thought that. Marc-Andre Fleury was really the only shoe-in just because of how well he played in the 16-17 playoffs. When Murray got hurt after the first game and how he pretty much brought that team to the conference finals by himself. Lost 2 games in a row and said, you know what? Got to go back to Murray. He's healthy. And, well, they ended up winning the cup again. So it kind of worked out in the end. But that's my thing. That Vegas team was supposed to be bad. And then they got good, and it ruined hockey forever. No, it didn't ruin hockey forever. It ruined the fact that they decided they're just going to bolster the salary cap and push that thing to the limit every chance they got. Because, holy cow, they are in trouble right now, and they're not doing so hot. But that's what I'm saying about Seattle is garnering expectations. Obviously, a lot of people thought they were going to be good. And you know what? They are a good team. They have talent there. But you know what? Right now, the puck's not bouncing their way. And I think we all can agree that Philip Grubauer is not a Vezina caliber goaltender. Oh, my Lord. He is having a rough go. Right now, as we stand, when we record this, they're 4-11-1 are the Kraken. They do play tomorrow against Colorado. So they have a couple more home games here before Washington. They lost to Chicago, like we talked about on Wednesday night. Now they get Colorado, who is, I don't want to say hitting their stride because they just beat a bad Canucks team the other night, but they're pretty good coming into this one. So the last thing Seattle wants is to have another loss going into that game. So certainly we got to keep our eyes on that. Right now, as we had mentioned, I just had the stand. They're 4-11-1, which is last in the Pacific Division, a whole 3 points even behind Vancouver. So Seattle trying to get to double digits in points right now. They are led offensively by Jordan Eberle with 13 points, 8 goals, and 5 assists. Jaden Schwartz and Alex Wenberg right behind them, both having pretty good years. Jaden Schwartz, was going to be one of their top offensive weapons. I thought he had some good years, good numbers with St. Louis, and I just knew that if he was going to give a real opportunity to be a number one line guy. I thought he was going to play well, and he's done all right so far. The penalty kill has been tough, and obviously power play numbers have not been glorious either, only operating about 12.5% right now. So not miserable. And the penalty kill, it's about 81.25%. So I think the big problem is the goaltending. And yes, you look at the amount of shots they've been giving up, sure. And the quality of chances, sure. But Grubauer at an 8.77 save percentage and a 3.18 goals against average. Here's how I'm going to describe that for you kids. We talked about this a little bit yesterday as well with Philip Grubauer. Grubauer is a great, good team goaltender. He will play well if there's a good team in front of him that can either A, score themselves out of a jam or find a way to, limit the good quality scoring chances. Because we're seeing right now that he's not a number one guy. And we're starting to see Chris Driedger. I'm not saying Chris Driedger is a flash in the pan. I think it's just it's a tough scenario for everyone right now. A new system, new teammates, brand new team. It's not like, there were like 5 or 6 of these guys put together. This is a fresh face team with a couple guys that may have played together before or have skated together in the past. So yes, it is an adjustment period for this team. And you're right. They were an expansion team, but eventually they'll figure it out. And I think they'll turn around and be a competitive hockey club. I don't think this will be an Atlanta Thrashers thing, knock on wood, as I say that. Joey Decord's gotten a couple games as well, and I'd like to see him maybe get a couple more. That'd be fun to watch. So those are the 2 games coming up this weekend for the Washington Capitals. They will be back on the Eastern Seaboard after that, taking on Montreal on Wednesday, Florida on Friday, and then Carolina on Sunday. One of those games not like the other. You can pick which one that is, but boy, some tough games coming up here for Washington when they come back from already a tough West Coast trip. So that is it, folks, for this Friday edition of Locked On Capitals. Thank you very much for listening and watching another week of Locked On Caps. We'll be back Monday for all the action of what happened this past weekend as well. Get you set for the games on tap coming up in the week after, and maybe bring on a few more folks to talk about the team and the teams they're playing against, possibly. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Hey, look at that. We'll just have to stay tuned. Be sure to follow us at Locked On Caps for those kind of sorts of things. And follow me, the Inside of the Insiders, Tyler Kuehl, at TJKU29 on Twitter and Instagram. And once again, thank you very much for making it your first listen and watch today and every day. Now go make Locked On Bets your second listen of the day, where you get your nonstop gambling needs. Your boy Q and Lee Sterling getting you all set for the daily events and lines and all that good stuff. We'll see you next Monday, guys. Enjoy the weekend. If you're up where we are, it's snowing right now, so drive safe. Get those summer tires off, or at least slow down. You should know what you're doing. Have a good rest of your weekend, guys. See you later.